Moving on.
You're a liberal. Oh my God, how many times have I heard it? Press Tifa. Biased. We said when Joe Biden was elected, we were going to hold Joe Biden every bit as equally accountable as we held Donald Trump. And Jennifer, Joe Biden is not off to the greatest start. As a matter of fact, things outside of maybe his support for Texas have been off to a pretty crappy start this week.
Yes, they have. Yes, they have.
And I know we've got a number of things we've got to unpack, and I want to be sensitive to time because we're into the second hour. We finished the first hour, we're into the second hour, and we have insurrection update also. So we got this, but there's a lot to unpack. Joe Biden had a town hall meeting, and he dropped facts and figures and information as politicians do. And one thing that we know about Joe from his campaigning and from the debates, because his stuff was fact checked and generally his stuff was really airtight. Joe wasn't Donald Trump bad at this town hall, but it was bad.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Why don't you start on the minimum wage discussion?
Yeah, I was going to say this is just like one of a few bad things that have happened this week that are not making me look favorably upon the administration at the moment. Okay, so the minimum wage. Joe said, quote, for example, if we gradually increased it, when we indexed it at 720, if we kept it indexed to inflation, people would be making $20 an hour right now. That's what it would be, end quote. But this is false. Today's federal minimum wage of $7.25 per hour, which took effect in 2009, would not even be close to $20 an hour if Congress had decided to link it to inflation. Adjusted for inflation, $7.25 in January 2009 was equal to $8.98 in January 2021. The White House told CNN that Biden was attempting to refer to a claim from a progressive think tank about how the minimum wage had been $24 an hour in 2020 if the minimum wage had kept pace with productivity growth, not inflation, since 1968, not 2009. Whew, that was a lot.
Yeah, and then the way the White House tried to spin it, it doesn't add up. I'm going to pause the story here for a minute. Hey, Cassie, I just saw your message to us. Malcontents, I have some great news. Cassie is one of the attorneys that was representing Ada Yeager, and apparently they're watching tonight. And Cassie has let me know that they did the case pro bono, and Ada is getting all of the money. So I just wanted to let Malcontents know. And that is one of the beauties of independent journalism and controlling a live show, because we're able to do stuff like this. And in a newsroom, when you get it wrong, it ends up like on page 37 2 weeks later. If you, Cassie, one thing I will say, if you haven't watched us before, we are very, very quick to go. We got something wrong, or we're going to go ahead and dig and try to find something out on that. So thank you for reaching out to us in real time and giving us that opportunity to share that good news. Yeah. Malcontents, spam some hearts for the legal team and for the attorneys that are doing great work to defend our unhomed population here in Seattle, because certainly the city isn't doing it. All right, Jennifer, back off my screed. Let's get back to this, conversation on the minimum wage.
Yeah.
Joe Biden wanted to pack this in to the COVID relief bill, but if I want to get to the point of we want to get it right. I believe that it was going to be, we would get to $15 in like 2025 was the original plan. It wasn't like a flip of a switch. Now, full stop, I'm certainly not an economics major. I studied economics in college as part of my business degree, and I'm a bit of a geek when it comes to economics. And it is generally not recommended to turn the dial like that, because bad things can happen when you turn the dial. However, in 1949, a certain president called Harry Truman almost doubled the minimum wage. And everybody said it was going to plunge the country back into recession. The United States went into a very severe recession at the end of World War II because all of the war spending collapsed, all of the war production collapsed, and millions of men came home to find women working, and there wasn't as many jobs going around. And the women's ended up getting pushed back and blah, blah, blah. And that's a whole conversation for another time. But the bottom line is that's the start of the women's liberation movement. I'm going to acknowledge it and keep moving. Guess what happened after he doubled the minimum wage? The United States went on to have the most prosperous period in the history of this country. Yeah. We also had 34% union membership, some of the highest rates of home ownership. And you could just go and healthcare was basically just given as part of your employment. There was no such thing as employment as will. State colleges were free. It was total socialism.
Don't say that word. You'll scare people. Oh, probably not here. Other people, though.
So, I mean, this doesn't feel like Joe screwed up. This feels like Joe was trying to play fast and loose with the numbers. I'm going to call it for what it is.
Yeah.
This doesn't help the conversation because the other side is just going to latch onto this. And whether they're going to say, well, there's Sleepy Joe, he's got the Alzheimer's, or whether they're going to say, see, he's lying, it doesn't matter. They're going to latch onto this stuff.
Yeah.
So, Joe, you got to do better, man. And we're going to hold your feet to the fire. With that, I'm going to move to the next one. And that same town hall, he talked about the undocumented population. And I have a quote here. The vast majority of the people, those 11 million undocumented, referring to the undocumented people, they're not Hispanics. They're people who came on a visa, who were able to buy a ticket to get in a plane and didn't go home. They didn't come across the Rio Grande swimming. All right. So, Joe, they didn't come across the Rio Grande swimming. Come on, dude. You were that close to saying wetbacks, man. Come on. That's number one. Represent your party. That's number one. Here's the second thing. He did get part of this right. The part that he did get right is that most people that are in this country illegally did not sneak across a border on foot. They arrived here on an airplane and they just overstayed their visa. That's it. Yeah. It's a vast majority of people that did that. But the part that he got wrong is that most people aren't Hispanic. That isn't true at all. And it's important that we acknowledge that because the Hispanic community, and I know some people don't call them Hispanic. I'm not going to list off the 21 countries that represents. And if there was a better term, then let us know in the comments because nobody's let us know. People of Latin American or South American descent. I don't know if that's a better. I'm looking that up on the fly. 73% of undocumented people in the United States speak Spanish at home. 68% are from Mexico or Central America. Another 7% are from South America. They are mostly Hispanic. And most of them are good people. And most of them are people that just want the same crack that we have. And Jennifer, the other thing is this, they took our jobs. I should have had that on a button. They're doing jobs that you don't want to do. That's right. Which is Eddie Chudd's watching.
Humanoid underground dweller.
They're not taking your jobs. You don't want to pick fruit. You don't want to clean hotel rooms. You don't want to work friggin' picking peppers down by the Salton Sea in Southern California on a 115-degree day, sucking in pesticides. They're doing stuff you don't want to do because you're holding out for a management job one day.
So I'm just going to say this because I just finished teaching the part of my 1900s class where we talk about the Mexican-American War. If the Mexican-American War had gone the other way, we'd all be speaking Spanish. But this is a war of U.S. aggression where, the U.S. went in and took on a military that they knew, a neighbor military, that they knew was still in the, throes of recovery from independence a couple decades earlier and trying to establish some kind of, authority within its own country and went down there and basically, did a massive land grab. People don't realize that the majority of the California and what we now call the Southwest was actually occupied by people who would be considered Latino, Latin, Hispanic, whatever term you would like to refer to them as, up until the mid 19th century. And the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo actually told Mexican citizens that stayed on within those lands of the newly, crafted United States, that they could enjoy the comforts of U.S. citizenship if they renounced their Mexican citizenship and stayed on those lands for a year. And that was a big fat lie.
Hallelujah! Holy shit!
Yeah, I think Chevy summed it up perfectly right there at the end. Yes, all of the above. And tons of comments coming from our community on things like the healthcare industry would collapse if it wasn't for undocumented workers, because they do a lot of jobs in healthcare. That's right. That people don't want to do because you're holding out for a management job one day. That's actually another National Lampoon's Vacation reference in there. We have a couple more topics on Joe. I want to keep this really tight. We both got a little on our soapbox on this.
Yeah.
I want to talk about COVID stimulus, right? Donald Trump did this. I'm not going to sign it. 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 And the other thing is Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump got in this war over the stimulus checks. Donald Trump wanted $2,000. Mitch McConnell said, yeah, suck it. Did $600. And then Donald Trump waited until the 26th, and then the next day he caved and he signed it. We don't know why he caved in the last bit, but he did. But it threw the nation's businesses and people that are relying on unemployment into complete frickin' chaos. And there are people in the state of Washington right now that still haven't been paid and haven't been paid since December. And we're getting to the end of February because of this fuckery that happened.
This is raining.
Yeah.
Well, the Trump-McConnell plan, that ends on March 14th. We're February 18th and we lose 3 days because this is a 28. Guess what, Joe? You got about a week left before we're going to be in the exact same boat come March 14th. I get the insurrection. I get all of that. You've got the votes in the Senate. You've got the votes in the House. Do it. End of story. That's all I'm going to say. Jennifer, talk about student loans.
Yeah. So recently, or this week too, it was, it kind of came out. He's like, no, I'm not going to support this, $50,000 in student loan debt relief that had been talked about as part of the campaign. And a lot of the other Democrats wanted him to sign on to, because student debt, I can attest to this personally, grad school is not cheap, is out of control. And it's like one of the things that people are most, you come out of school and student debt loans, the interest rate is incredible. The payments are usually pretty high depending on what you're doing, and it's really hard to get them forgiven. So this would have meant a lot to a lot of people, would have taken a lot of debt off a lot of people's plate to have that reduction in student loan debt. So he's come out pretty much saying, yeah, I'm not really interested in doing that this week. And there's the other piece I wanted to address, because I do teach the opening school plan, where he's like, it'd be great if teachers had vaccines, but it's not mandatory for reopening. Excuse me? I don't want to be locked in a room, no offense to my students, whom I love dearly, with a bunch of other people, masked or not, in poorly circulated small room, spewing ideas around with each other, unvaccinated, because the President of the United States has said, school should open, but it's not mandatory for teachers to have vaccines.
Hallelujah! Holy shit!
Joe, do better.
You're pissing me off, Joe.
So you know what?
Chud. Cannibalistic, humanoid, underground dwellers.
You're biased. Yeah, you're full of shit and you're not paying attention.